Yes, we straight away move on to our topic of e-invoicing is now live. And basically, I think this was a thing which was to come in. Well, when GST itself was to come in, there were so many ifs and buts that whether GST would actually come or not. And all of a sudden, on 1st of July 2017, we found that yes, GST is right there in front of us and put us to so many tasks to perform. And one of the points envisaged in this GST scenario in India was e-invoicing. And again, as was being discussed, that e-invoicing is going to come. There were several dates which were announced. There were various threshold limits which were announced, above which the e-invoicing would be made mandatory. And even during this pandemic, the government was working hard to ensure that e-invoicing does get implemented. And yes, we today e-invoicing has seen the light of day, and from 1st October 2020, e-invoicing has become a reality in India. So it's a big achievement for the government that e-invoicing has stepped in. So, but we need to really see that how well prepared is the government and how well prepared are the businessmen, and that is why we are here to study that how ready is our business as regards this e-invoicing is concerned. Just to take you all to a little background, as I already mentioned, it was already announced that earlier that from 1st of January, for all B2B transactions, e-invoicing would be made available, and it was to be first implemented on voluntary basis. There was also a sandbox API which was available to those who could register on that sandbox API, and the trial version was also available. Those who could try had got the experience of how this e-invoices would be coming into being. But those who are not, well, yes, it's time to gear up ourselves and check how this e-invoicing system, the entire system, is going to work. Because we first need to understand what are the various aspects involved in this e-invoicing, and to whom it will be applicable, who will be eligible to issue e-invoices, for which types of transactions we need to issue e-invoices, what will happen to the debit notes and credit notes, as mentioned by Robin in the beginning, that is also going to be an issue, how to reflect them, what is going to be the impact on the recipient of that e-invoice. I think these are various points which we need to consider, apart from the other technicalities of the portal of that, how this e-invoicing is going to work. So my first task would be definitely to make you all aware of what this e-invoicing process is going to be and how it is going to shape up. The notification 13 by 2020 made it mandatory for specified taxpayers that e-invoicing will be mandatory for specified taxpayers. And by notification number 70, it was made mandatory for companies, or rather entities, having aggregate turnover more than rupees 500 crores. But last week, there has been an announcement by our finance secretary, and there he has mentioned that e-invoicing will be available to taxpayers with aggregate turnover of more than 100 crores from 1st of January 2020. And that's not far away, and that's going to be a large number of people. And gradually, e-invoicing to be rolled out from 1st April 2021 for all the B2B transactions, so all business-to-business transactions for registered taxpayers. It appears that the government intends to make it applicable full-fledged from 1st April 2021, and this is the phase-wise. We are in the first phase of implementation of e-invoicing. And what was the need to have this e-invoicing started? Basically, if you see businesses across the country, they have their own methodology of creating the invoices. Everybody has their own set of data which they want to incorporate in the invoice. If you all would have seen the data of excise invoices, the invoices which used to be issued under the excise regime, there was so many data which were required to be mentioned. Even under GST, there are various parameters which have been given, which are to be mentioned in a tax invoice. But apart from that, the businesses also need other additional information to be mentioned in their invoices, and not all information can be standardized and put it into a standard format. So basically, what government wanted to do, that wanted to set up an ecosystem whereby a standard set of data, which are some of the mandatory fields which are required in an invoice, they would be reported to the invoice registration portal, so that all data which comes to the government portal comes in a standardized format. Whatever data is to be further transmitted also goes in a standardized format, and at least those specific fields which are important fields like the GSTIN number, the invoice date, GSTIN number of the recipient, taxable value, tax amount. This basic information has been standardized, and once this data is standardized, other data which are there to be reflected on the invoice, that can be taken care of. So hence it was necessary that for the entire ecosystem to work, there has to be a standard schema, so that multiple data entry points are eliminated. The data is available in machine readable format, and the uniform interpretation is the key objective of the e-invoice system. Of course, this will be further required for reporting to the GST system as a part of the GST return, because it is also envisaged that the data from the e-invoice which will be uploaded on the GST portal, that will also get transmitted to the GST returns of that individual person, and also to the GSTR 2A of the recipient. How that will work, we will see on that. And of course, one more objective which the government has mentioned is that there is, apart from the GST system, adoption of the standard will also ensure that an e-invoice shared by a seller with his buyer, or a bank, or an agent, or any other player in the whole business ecosystem can be read by machines and obviate and hence eliminate data entry errors. So just to standardize the data, the basic data which is required for an invoice, what is the GSTIN number, what is the taxable value, what is the tax amount, and what is the invoice number and date. If this data is standardized, then it will be easy for everyone to fetch that information and reuse that information. So whose responsibility it is to generate the e-invoice? Of course, it is the responsibility of the taxpayers who is supplying the goods to generate the e-invoice, and that has to be reported on the invoice registration portal in form GST INV 01. So form GST INV 01 is basically the form wherein, as I mentioned earlier, the 6-7 types of data format data in a specific format, that is the GSTIN number, invoice number, date, etc., as I mentioned right now, are required to be uploaded. The IRP, that is the invoice registration portal, will generate a unique reference number and digitally sign the e-invoice, and also generate a QR code. So two things are there. First, a specific set of data. Say there's a transaction which is happening, and a sales invoice is say generated for 1 lakh rupees. Now that sales invoice, the person say he has prepared that invoice in Excel. Now there's a set of data. Out of that, he will pick and choose that data. He will put that specified data onto the GST IRP, or that is the invoice registration portal. The invoice registration portal in turn will generate the IRN. It will digitally sign the e-invoice. The invoice which will be generated by the invoice registration portal will be digitally signed by the government, and simultaneously it will also generate a QR code. So and that QR code generated invoice will be the final e-invoice. Now the question is how it is to be further submitted to the recipient. We'll come to that how that particular e-invoice will be going to the recipient. First of all, let us understand the applicability of e-invoicing, to whom it is applicable. E-invoicing, as we discussed, is applicable to those entities whose aggregate turnover exceeds Indian rupees 500 crore. And there is a recent notification which mentions that how to compute this turnover and for which period. it says that the turnover of any preceding financial year from 17-18 onwards needs to be checked to find out the eligibility that the person is liable to issue an e-invoice. Say, for example, a company had a turnover of 600 crores in 17-18, but it has a turnover of only 100 crores in 2020-21. Still, such companies will be liable to issue a e-invoice. Then basically, which are the types of transactions which are to be included in the e-invoice? All B2B transactions. So whenever a registered person is selling to another registered person, it is called a B2B transactions. These are required to be reported. Not all transactions are required to be will require an e-invoice. Only this transactions will require. So B2C transactions is not mentioned over here. B2C transactions will not require an e-invoice. Then all export transactions, this was not there earlier, this was added subsequently. All export transactions will require e-invoice. Whether the export transactions are with payment of tax or without payment of tax, e-invoice will be required. Similarly, for SEZ, sales to SEZ, e-invoice will be required whether they are with payment of tax or without payment of tax. And in case of deemed exports also, e-invoice will be required. And which are the documents for which the e-invoice will be required? They are the tax invoice, the debit note, and the credit note. So these three types of documents, e-invoicing will be applicable. Of course, this is applicable from 1st October 2020. There's a one-time relaxation which is available. We will come to that point in the later slide. So to whom this e-invoicing is not applicable? Of course, those whose turnover as of now is below 500 crore. And as stated earlier, it is expected that many other companies will be coming into the fold of e-invoicing very shortly. So everybody really needs to pull up their sleeves and get ready to learn e-invoicing. And it is not applicable to specified businesses. So which are the specified businesses to which e-invoicing is not applicable? If it is a SEZ unit, if the unit is a SEZ unit, it need not generate an e-invoice. In the earlier slide where I mentioned that if the sales are made to a SEZ unit, then e-invoice is required. But if the SEZ unit is making any sales, then that SEZ unit need not prepare a e-invoice. Similarly, exemption has been given to insurance companies, banking company, financial institution, NBFC, GTA service providers, passenger transport service, and admission to multiplex for films. So under all this is under Rule 54, these exceptions are there. So this specified businesses did not prepare a e-invoice. We need to mark here one thing, that the exemption which is given to the SEZ is only for the SEZ unit and not to the SEZ developer. So if a SEZ developer is there who is preparing or who is constructing that SEZ unit, the exemption is not given to the SEZ developer, but it is given only to the SEZ unit for not making the e-invoice. Then one more question comes, that what happens to a registration, to a company which has a ISD registration number? It has an input service distributor registration number. Whether e-invoicing will be applicable to such ISD registration numbers? The answer is no. It is not applicable to the ISD registration numbers, but it is applicable only to the main numbers for which there is a business. And for ISD registration number, e-invoicing is not required, because ISD generally prepares the invoice for self-distribution of input tax credit within the entity itself. It does not go to outsiders. The basic purpose is that when it goes to the other entities, and basically B2B cases, there the government wants to make it an automated process of invoicing and taking the input tax credit. So for an input service distributor, e-invoicing is not required. Then one more question which comes up is that what happens to units that are situated in a free trade warehousing zone? Are they exempt from e-invoicing? Because SEZ developer is not exempted, SEZ unit is exempted, then what happens to the FTWZ units, whether they will be exempted or not? There's a FAQ on this specific point, which is given by the government, and it mentions that as per the foreign trade policy, FTWZ are only a special category of SEZ with a focus on trading and warehousing, and yes, they are exempted from e-invoicing. So FTWZ will be treated as at par with a SEZ unit, and if there are any sales happening from that FTWZ unit of a company, then qua that FTWZ unit, e-invoicing is not required. This is the meaning of the term aggregate turnover, because everywhere we are seeing that a turnover is mentioned. 500 crore turnover, 100 crore turnover. There are various thresholds which are mentioned in the various notifications. So how to calculate the turnover is always a challenge under the GST law. And let's understand one thing, that GST law itself has its defined aggregate turnover definition, a specific definition which states what should be the turnover as under the GST law. So basically it covers all the turnover the company has under the same PAN, whether it is registered in one state or in multiple states. It includes all exports, and it includes all interstate supplies of the person having same PAN. That is in general what we talk as branch transfers. So all these have to be aggregated together to come to the definition of aggregate turnover, and to verify that whether the specific entity is liable for generating the e-invoice or not liable for generating the e-invoice. So there's an example over here. Say the turnover as per the profit and loss account is 400 crores. The company is having taxable supply of 100 crores, exempt supply of 300 crores, and there's the interstate stock transfer of 150 crores. So as per the financials, as per the books of accounts, the turnover is 400 crores. But there's the interstate stock transfer of 150 crores. And as far as the aggregate turnover definition is concerned, we need to add stock transfer also. So even though as per balance sheet the turnover is 400 crores, the total turnover of the company as per the GST law exceeds 500 crore. And yes, e-invoicing will be applicable to such companies. Then the second question comes that if yes, if it is e-invoicing is applicable, whether e-invoice is required for exempt supplies where bill of supply is issued. See, we first identified that e-invoicing is required for B2B transactions. Business to business, registered person to registered person, it is required. Now within that, there is a subcategory that I am selling taxable goods as well as I am selling exempted goods. The transaction in qua the sale of the taxable as well as the exempted goods could be with a B2B person, that is a registered person. I may be selling exempted goods to another registered entity. That is possible. So whether in such cases e-invoicing will be applicable or not. Because what happens in case of exempt supply, instead of a tax invoice, as per section 31(3), there is an exception which states that in case of exempt goods, a bill of supply is required to be issued in place of a tax invoice. Tax invoice is equivalent to an invoice as defined under the GST section 2, and that is to be read along with section 31 of the CGST Act. So an invoice is equivalent to a tax invoice, but a bill of supply is not equivalent, is in place of a tax invoice, which implies that for a bill of supply is not considered as invoice under the GST law, and for such bill of supply, e-invoicing would not be required. Further to to add to this analogy, when we go to the formats, there are 4 formats which are given: format A, B, C, and D for generating of the e-invoice. When we go to the format and when we go to the drop-down menu to select the type of document, it only selects a tax invoice. It does not select a bill of supply. So that is also that also implies further that for exempt supplies, e-invoicing is not required. If you generate it, I don't know, because there is going to be one more issue, that for exempt supply, whether a zero rate will be accepted or not. Yesterday only there was an announcement on the portal that for IGST 0% rate will be accepted on the portal for without payment of tax option under export sales. They are going to allow 0% for without payment of tax in the portal. So for exempt also they might allow if you want to generate e-invoice for exempt supply where a bill of supply is being issued. But otherwise, per se, it is not required to issue a e-invoice. Then there is one more question which can come up. Say a person is dealing in both the types of goods, as in this case, ambitious industries. They are so ambitious, they are dealing into taxable, exempt supplies, all kinds of goods. Now, for this taxable supplies, a single invoice is being prepared for taxable as well as for exempt supplies. How will they mention that data for generating the e-invoice? Because if the system does not take exempt supplies, then that is again going to be issue. So maybe till that point of time, till the position is further clarified by the portal and by the government, separate invoices can be issued for taxable as well as exempt supply, so that there is no further hardship on this count. Okay, now we take one more case. Enterprising industries. The turnover as per the profit and loss account is 600 crore. 400 crore is in the SEZ unit and 200 crore is in the DTA unit. So say a company has a SEZ unit as well as a domestic tariff area unit, and it has GSTN numbers for both. So what would happen to the e-invoicing? Since SEZ units are exempted, whether for the DTA units they need to prepare an e-invoice. The answer is yes, the DTA unit will be required to prepare the e-invoice because the aggregate turnover as per GST law has exceeded 500 crore. So even though the DTA unit turnover is less than 500 crore, but still e-invoicing will be required in this case. The next question is whether e-invoicing is applicable for supplies involving reverse charge. So this reverse charge we have to see in respect of outward supplies and not in case of inward supplies. I think that we first need to keep in mind when we are talking of supplies involving reverse charge. In this context, we are talking of outward supplies involving reverse charge. Say like the case of say a firm of advocates who is making outward supplies. They are not liable to pay tax under forward charge. The recipient is liable to pay tax under reverse charge, but they need to mention that invoice details in their GSTR1 even today. And say in that case, if the turnover of that firm is more than 500 crore rupees, then such entities will also be required to prepare a e-invoice. So if the e-invoice is issued by a notified person is in respect of supplies made by him but attracting reverse charge, e-invoicing is applicable. Example we have seen. On the other hand, where supplies are received by the notified person, e-invoicing doesn't arise or is not applicable. So it is not applicable for inward uh, supplies liable to reverse charge only, but for outward supplies which are liable to reverse charge under section 9(3). One more question which arises over here is that whether on import of goods, whether any e-invoice will be required to be made. Again, I think it comes under the same category. Although tax is paid under reverse charge mechanism as per section 5 of the IGST Act, but still in this case, e-invoice will not be required because it falls under the mechanism, the reverse charge mechanism. Now, how can a person identify that whether he is liable for generating the e-invoice? So a facility has also been given on the e-invoice portal. So on this e-invoice portal, when you go to search taxpayer and you put in the GSTIN number, they will mention that whether that particular GSTIN is enabled for generation of the e-invoice or it is not eligible. So the system itself has calculated the eligibility for e-invoice. So in case if you want to double check this, you can check it on the e-invoice portal. Generally, the company which is making the supply is only required to generate the e-invoice, but there is an option which is given in case the supplies are happening through an e-commerce operator. There, the e-commerce operators have the option of generating the e-invoice on behalf of the suppliers selling through their e-commerce operators. So this is one option which is available. That decision will have to be taken jointly by the e-commerce operator and the supplier which is selling through that e-commerce operator. Yeah, this is the screenshot of checking the status of e-invoice enablement. So if e-invoice generating of e-invoice has been enabled on the portal, it can be checked on gst.gov.in under this thing. Of course, if it is, and you need to take a separate registration, like to generate an e-way bill, there's a separate portal. Similarly, for generating e-invoices, there is a separate portal, and the person will have to take a separate registration to generate the e-invoice. One more user ID and password needs to be maintained in the list of various user IDs and password that a person would already be maintaining. So one more user ID password, but there is one saving grace in the sense that the same user ID password which is used on the e-way bill portal, that can be used for the e-invoice portal also. Of course, the e-invoice portal also has the option of generating the e-way bill from that portal itself and mentioning that data. Of course, that is optional, but in such cases, whenever whenever an e-way bill would be generated separately, there the IRN number of the e-invoice generated will have to be mentioned by the taxpayer. So this is a rule 48.4, which mentions that when the powers have been taken. I'm not going into that. We already discussed that. Going through the e-invoice workflow, how it will happen. First of all, let's understand that businesses will continue to work as they have been doing and as they have been issuing their invoices. What is happening in this e-invoicing era is an additional information by way of the invoice reference number will have to be mentioned on the invoice which will be issued by that particular taxpayer. So a normal invoice which is required to be generated by maybe it is generated through the ERP software which the company is having, or the accounting software, or billing software, or maybe in Excel they are generating, whatever. Right. So there, or maybe in Zoho if they are generating. So Zoho has all those facilities. So so they will have to generate a normal invoice. Of course, that invoice needs to be verified as usual through the maker checker process within the company itself. This is not an outside process. Then, having checked and verified that, the creation of JSON file of the same is to be uploaded on the invoice registration portal in the prescribed format. So after generating the JSON file of the requisite format, it has to be uploaded on the IRP. Then uploading a JSON file to the IRP. Then after that, IRP generates the IRN, that is the invoice reference number. IRP will add its digital signature and QR code and return back the digitally signed JSON with the IRN and QR code back to the supplier. So the first question comes: how will it return it back? Will it send an email? Will the invoice come? Will I get a digitally signed invoice from the government? The answer is no. The invoice will be available on the portal and be in a JSON format. That JSON format needs to be downloaded and pulled into our regular system. What the portal will further do? The portal will share its data with the GST portal, because e-way bill portal, e-invoice portal are separate portals, and the GST portal where the returns are filed, that is a separate portal. So this e-invoice portal will share the data which it has got from the taxpayer with the GST portal and with the e-way bill system. What will happen to that? The data which is required to be generated for GSTR1, that will go and fall into that into those tabulations, and the data which is required for e-way bill will go and get fitted into the e-way bill system portal. And what the taxpayer will have to do, he will have to convert the downloaded JSON file into a readable format. QR code is mandatory to be printed on the final invoice, which is required to be printed and given to the recipient. Then the question comes whether a company logo can be added or not. Of course, every company would like to print its logo on the invoice which it issues to its customers. Let's understand what the portal, the government portal, gives us is only those 6 or 7 fields data which come in a which come through the digitally signed e-invoice with the IRN number. That IRN number can be placed on the regular invoice along with the QR code, and the normal invoice can then be issued along with the QR code. And of course, if the company wants to add its own logo, it can do it so in its own regular invoice. And whatever additional tax details, terms, there are so many terms and conditions which are mentioned on the invoice. All those can also be put in the regular invoice. Only thing is, it has to contain that QR code which is given by the government portal, the IRP. The e-invoice can be generated PDF or printout as required. So this invoice, what they are talking of in the workflow, is the e-invoice which is downloaded from the government portal. I have a snapshot of it. I'll show that e-invoice also. That e-invoice can also be sent to the customer. And that, of course, the normal invoice needs to be signed by authorized person, etc., and issue the same to the customer or the recipient. Invoice will be valid only if it has a valid invoice reference number. This workflow, I think we have already taken. Okay. Then we also need to understand that what are the modes of generating the e-invoice. There are 3 modes as of now. First mode is the offline bulk upload facility, which is available on the portal. There are formats which can be downloaded from the portal. The data can be filled into those formats. The JSON can be generated in the offline mode and uploaded through the e-invoice portal into the system. So that is the offline bulk upload facility which is available. Of course, it can go invoice wise also. The second is direct API integration with the taxpayer system. The taxpayer, because if they want, they can directly integrate the system. There, say a company is having an ERP and it wants to integrate its software, that ERP, with the API which has been given by the government, so that the invoice is directly sent to that ERP to the IRP, that is the invoice registration portal, and the e-invoice which is received with the IRN is downloaded into the taxpayer's own ERP, and from that data can be pulled in, the QR code can be pulled in from there, and the normal invoice which the company wants to issue to its customer, that can be issued. That is the second mode. The third mode is API integration with the taxpayer system through a ASP or a GSP. So there are GST Suvidha providers who have been authorized by the government, that in case if there is a company which is using a particular software, and if that software that company ties up with the authorized service provider as well as the GST service provider, Suvidha provider, then they can link that software through the GSP, that is the GST Suvidha provider, and through them they can upload the data for generating the e-invoice number and download the e-invoice. So that is also possible. So these are the modes of generation as of now. The web-based mobile app. The web-based mobile app mode is also expected in the web-based and mobile app-based mode is also expected in the future. The government is working on it, and maybe in future we'll be able to do it through those also. Now, this is the sample format of the invoice. This is basically the IRN. Sorry. This is the IRN. This is a 64-digit number which is getting printed on the invoice, and this is the QR code. This is the invoice which has been generated from the system and which is really by the government. And this is the information which is available on the invoice. When we talk of the invoice, of course, there are a few fields which are mandatory fields which are to be submitted for generating the IRN. But in case if the taxpayer feels that he wants to mention all the other details which are required for generating his invoice and mentioning those details in the e-invoice portal, there are more than 150 fields which are given, out of which some are mandatory, some are optional fields. That entire schema has been very nicely tabulated by the government. Even in July 2020, they have updated that schema. And in case if all other details, item-wise details, HSN-wise details, product-wise details, batch-wise details, so many options are available. And I think it is a very well envisaged e-invoice system by the government, and various options are available to put in that data. And in case the taxpayer feels that he wants to put in that data onto the portal, yes, he has the option of putting in that data also. Coming to some of the issues that, okay, now as far as this e-invoicing is concerned, there are 2 or 3 issues which are cropping up. What if the e-invoice is not prepared by the taxpayer? There is some relaxation. To what extent it is applicable, and what are the repercussions on the recipient of the supply for this e-invoice? Because we all know that invoice is the heart of all the transactions that happen in the GST system, right? Because that is the base. The tax invoice is the base for taking the credit, and section 16 is there for allowance, disallowance, then section 17 block credit, etc. They, of course, they come subsequently. But the base for taking the input tax credit, the input tax credit is the real heart of GST, is the invoice, or rather the tax invoice. This tax invoice is replaced by the e-invoice. So various issues are coming up, that how do I ensure that this e-invoice is correct, or whether my supplier was actually required to issue a e-invoice, whether the invoice issued by him to me is correct or not, whether I will get the credit of my purchases, of the tax paid on my purchases qua that invoice. So there are various issues. Let's see them one by one. Of course, the first liability is on the individual to prepare the invoice. What if invoice is not prepared? As per Rule 48.5, every invoice issued by a person to whom Sub-Rule 4 applies. Sub-Rule 4 we saw earlier, that that was regarding the notification which would classify who is required to prepare the e-invoice. So 500 crores as of now, turnover 500 crores as of now. So every person, he has to, okay, so every invoice issued by a person to whom Sub-Rule 4 applies in any manner other than the manner specified in said sub-rule shall not be treated as an invoice. I think we need to really understand this. So if an e-invoice is required to be issued in a particular format by generating an IRN, then that is the only invoice which is required for the entire purposes of GST, and any other invoice will not be a valid invoice. So I think that is a big challenge to ensure that we get a valid e-invoice to take the credit of the GST. Of course, if the supplier who has to prepare the invoice is not preparing in that format, all the consequences of supply without generating invoice would apply, and the penalty under section 122(1), detention under section 129, that is for the e-way bill, etc. All those penalties and all those repercussions will be made applicable. There's a minimum penalty of 10,000 rupees per default for each transaction. So you can understand how high is the quantum of penalty that is involved, and it gets extended to the extent of tax involved. So whichever is higher, that is, whichever is higher is the penal amount which is mentioned in section 122. So the penalty is really actually very high. So those penal consequences are, of course, there on the supplier who is going to supply those goods. Then there's a one-time relaxation, because it has come off very fast, and the businesses are still not ready. And of course, there was a pandemic scenario. It is rather still there, the pandemic scenario. So one-time relaxation has been given by way of notification number 73 by 2020, which came on 30th September. And it mentions that where such e-invoices are required to be issued, but they are not issued simultaneously while sending the normal invoice, in the month of October 2020, then penalty for such non-adherence to the provisions shall stand waived if the IRN for such invoice is obtained from the IRP within 30 days of date of invoice. This relaxation shall not be available for invoices issued from 1st November 2020. गवर्नमेंट ने अभी से बोल दिया है ये एक महीने के लिए ही रिलैक्सेशन है, अगले महीने के लिए नहीं है. So only for this one, this invoice, the normal invoice will be allowed, but you are given 30 days to generate the IRN number. Then only it is valid. So it is only a temporary relief which is given, and of course this IRN number will have to ultimately get reflected in the GSTR 2A of the recipient also to get the credit. Because let me mention one more thing over here. The IRN number and IRN date columns also will get embedded into GSTR 1 and GSTR 2A. So along with your normal document number or your normal invoice number, there will also be IRN number which you will have to take care. As far as document number, I also wanted to mention one more thing, that in one of the FAQs, it is mentioned that the document number cannot start with 0. The machine cannot read 0. Of course, it is always into bits and bytes, 0 and 1. But that is a machine readable language. As far as the document number cell is concerned, the document number should not start with a 0, slash, or a dash. So I think that is one more point which we need to keep in mind. The document number you cannot have an invoice number 0001. You can have, it has to start with a numeric. It has to start with 1. It cannot start with 0. Yeah, so in this case, just to take the example, if the invoice is dated 5th October, the reporting on the invoice registration portal has to be latest by 4th of November 2020, because within 30 days of the date of issue of invoice, it has to be mentioned. It is not that for the entire month of October you get 30th November. Pura mahina nahi dekhna hai. You have to see date wise. So for 1st of October, it will be again within 30 days, or 2nd October, it will be on 1st of November. You'll have to mention that. So that needs to be noted. Of course, there were many new amendments on 30th September 2020 itself, wherein the QR code having the IRN to be a part of the invoice copy issued to the buyer, that has become mandatory. Even in section 31, the rules thereof, the clause L and R have been added, wherein it has been mentioned that QR code is a necessary ingredient on the tax invoice. And Commissioner, of course, has been given powers in case of contingency. One more point of clarification which has come is that where e-invoicing is applicable, physical invoice need not be carried during the movement of goods, and it is sufficient if the QR code having IRN is produced electronically for verification by the proper officer. So if the QR code is available, the physical invoice may not be required, and the proper officer will be able to scan it in his data system, check it in his data system. What are the repercussions on the recipient? I think there is which invoice to be considered, the regular tax invoice or the e-invoice. Of course, the e-invoice will be the valid invoice which the recipient will have to consider. Let's understand one thing. Although e-invoicing is made applicable to companies with turnover more than 500 crore, but such companies may be selling to persons whose turnover are less than 500 crore, or even they are very less. Maybe it can be less than 2 crore also, turnover could be there of the recipient. Such recipient would be receiving the invoice from, or would be getting the invoice. So how to confirm that, or how to verify that कि मेरा supplier 500 crore के ऊपर उसका turnover है? Of course, there is a provision to search through the TIN on the GSTN portal that that particular TIN is liable to, or whether it is enabled for e-invoicing, and from that the company can check. That of course some companies have already started taking declarations from their vendors whether they are eligible or liable to issue e-invoice or not. Because otherwise, taking the input tax credit is going to be an issue otherwise. So if the invoice is not correct, that is going to be an issue. Of course, and also verification of QR code on the invoice is also going to be important. This QR code, the government has also come out with a mobile app wherein by putting the GSTN number, you'll be able to verify the QR code. I think I have a screenshot of that also in my slide, that how you'll be able to verify the QR code on the invoice. So that provision has been given. And of course, matching purchase details with GSTR 2A. GSTR 2A is already there. Only thing is that now with this e-invoice, that it has to come through the IRN number. That is what is going to be important. This we have already taken up. Then coming to the point of debit notes and credit notes in e-invoicing. Robinji?
Yes, sir.
Robinji, do we have some time to continue, or you want to take up? There are a few points which I feel would be required.
Yes, sir. We can continue, sir. That shouldn't be a problem.
Shouldn't be a problem. Thanks.
Yes.
Issuance of debit notes and credit notes in e-invoicing regime. So this e-invoicing has been made applicable to debit notes and credit notes also. Right. So it is not, so although the name is e-invoicing, but it applies to debit notes, credit notes. So whatever debit notes and credit notes are issued as per section 34, again, we should understand the difference between the financial debit credit notes and the tax debit credit notes. That has been made very clear by the government in the next circular. So this tax debit notes and credit notes which are required to be issued, they will have to have the IRN number also. They will also require the IRN number. If the sales is made, now again there's an issue in this. If the sales is made on 10th September, say before this e-invoicing era began, and credit required to be issued on 14th October, say today, in October after this implementation. So sales is happening prior to a date, to the implementation date, and the credit note is getting issued post the implementation date. Then whether such credit note is required to be generated on the IRP, the answer is yes. So whatever credit note are being issued currently, they will be required to be generated through the IRP. That is, the IRN number will be required for that. Whether IRN number is to be mentioned on the debit note and credit note, yes, they will be required to mention the IRN number. Whether QR code will be required on the DNCN, according to me, yes, the QR code also will be required on the DNCN. There is no specification, no specific mention given whether it is required or not. Basically, QR code would be more of a need in the case of the e-way bill and during the transit or during the movement of the goods when the person is carrying the e-invoice. Generally, goods are not carried through the at the time when the debit credit notes are issued. So maybe because when we go and see the tax invoice mandatory points, there the QR code is said to be mandatory, but for the DNCN they have not mentioned it as mandatory. But nevertheless, I think more clarification will come on this. Even if it is not mentioned, I think it should still work, but the IRN number will be required. And this IRN number, as I told again, it is going to get placed even on the GSTR 1 also, GSTR 2A also. In case of credit note, debit note, is there any validation with respect to invoice number? This is again a big issue because I may have issued 10 invoices against which I am issuing one single credit note or one single debit note. So whether that correlation is required or not. And I think now this point has been made fairly clear. It was the issue earlier in section 16.4, but after the amendment which has come, that correlation has been done away with. Even in GSTR 1, also that correlation has now been done away. So the validation with respect to invoice number is not required even under the e-invoice regime. This point we already taken. I think we should skip this. Okay. What is the official website notified for generation of e-invoice? So basically, they have already or they had announced that there are going to be 10 portals: e-invoice 1, 2, 3, 4 up to e-invoice 10, e-invoice1.gst.gov.in. This is the one portal which is active as of now, and in near future 9 more such portals will become active. Yeah, the invoice reference number, as I told earlier, is a hash of supplier GSTIN plus financial year plus document type and document number, and it is a 64 character. It is of 64 characters length, right? So it is a huge number. I would like to mention here one thing, that when a JSON file is uploaded for obtaining the IRN number, they give an acknowledgement number of having uploaded that JSON file. That acknowledgement number should be kept and saved by the person who is uploading that invoice, e-invoice or GST INV1 on the portal. Because when you want to search some data or you want to cancel some data, and this typing of 64 characters length, if you're not able to copy paste it somewhere, then there's a chance that there could be errors in retyping this entire 64 characters. So an acknowledgement number qua this particular invoice would also be generated, and the search also enables, the search which is there is enabled based on the acknowledgement number of this JSON uploading. So whether JSON uploading happens, the acknowledgement number which is generated, that can be used for doing further search on the e-invoice portal. This is how the 64 character hash will look like. This is such a huge number. It is not possible to even copy paste other except it is for a copy paste online. There is bound to be error if it is going to be manual typing also. And what data is embedded in the QR code, as I discussed earlier? The GSTIN of the supplier, GSTIN of recipient, invoice number, date of generation of invoice. These are the normal invoice number and the normal invoice date. Invoice value, taxable and gross tax, number of line items. Okay, there is one more point, that if there are many line items in one single bill, how to generate the e-invoice. For that also provision is separately available. I think even in the Zoho presentation you will have this. I'll not dwell into that parameter of the number of line items, how to be mentioned, but there's a adequate provision which is made on the portal itself and also in the various softwares which are available for making these invoices, how to give the line-wise breakup or the item number-wise breakup. The HSN code, the unique reference number itself, which is the hash, that 64 digit, and the IRN generation date. These are the data which will be available in the QR code. I think I'll come to one more slide. It is now only. There's a difference between a QR code and a dynamic QR code. Nowadays, we all go to, when we go out shopping, we see that QR code is available, Paytm, scan karo and make the payment. That is a static QR code which is available. Here this QR code is not for making payment. The QR code which we saw in the previous slide, which is generated on the IRP, it is not for making payment. It is only for getting that information of this particular data which is available over here, to get this information. Then there is one more provision which I think we really need to understand when we talk about invoices. Invoices, I think, have become so important nowadays that you would have seen that even for TCS, so many provisions and so many systems, rules, parameters are there for generating the invoices with relation to TCS, and there the limit is only 10 crore rupees. So I don't think there's going to be much of a time where everybody will get covered under this GST e-invoicing, and I think all companies, as government is telling, most of them at least will get covered by 2021 or April 21. Coming to this dynamic QR code, I think this is one, again, a bit of a separate area, but we really need to understand what is the dynamic QR code, because there's a lots of confusion amongst various companies which we are interacting with, that what is this QR code and what is the dynamic QR code. So dynamic QR code is applicable for B2C invoices only. It is not applicable to B2B invoices. That is the first differentiation that we have to keep in mind. The normal B2B invoices, which we have been discussing right through in this session, for that a normal QR code will apply and that is applicable only in case of B2B transaction, business to business, registered person to registered person transaction. But in case of business to cash or business to registered person to an unregistered person, if there is a sale, which is called as B2C, there e-invoice is not required. There the dynamic QR code is made mandatory. Of course, as of now, it is made applicable only to companies having turnover more than 500 crore. Earlier, this was to get implemented from 1st of October 2020, but has been postponed to 1st of December 2020, not even 1st of January. Only 2 months ka deviation, 1st of December 2020. This dynamic QR for cash B2C transactions has been implemented. So that is going to be a bit different. And this dynamic QR code will be made available to the buyer through a digital display with payment cross-reference, and that shall be deemed to be having the regular QR code. So there are two types of QR code, one for B2B transactions and other for B2C transaction. Basically, this purpose for this dynamic QR code is to enable and encourage digital payments where the buyer can scan the dynamic QR code and make payment from the mobile wallet directly. So that is the purpose of this dynamic QR code. There is a differentiation between normal QR code and this dynamic. So that I wanted to everybody to keep in mind. This I think we have already discussed. Does it have any relevance for B2B invoicing? Dynamic QR code is not for B2B, it is only for B2C transactions. How many copies of e-invoice need to be generated? So now only one single is required e-invoice. You need not require 3 copies, because earlier for sale of goods, 3 invoices were required: original, duplicate, and triplicate. And in case of supply of services, the original and duplicate 2 were required. But in the e-invoice region, only one invoice itself shall be valid and will also be applicable for the e-way bill system also. What time the e-invoice will be generated? So as discussed, there is no change in the time of supply rules. So the time of supply rules apply as they are, and every invoice, a normal invoice or a regular invoice which is required to be issued by a taxpayer, has to contain the e-invoice IRN number, that is the invoice reference number. So basically, it is a pre-process to issuing any regular invoice. That I think we need to keep in mind. It's a pre-process to every regular invoice, and that is so. There is no separate time limit for generating the invoice. It is rather a prerequisite for issuing an invoice. It is a mandatory field that the QR code, the IRN number, needs to be mentioned. So one common question which comes up, that will businesses now be required to generate e-invoices on the GST portal or the IRN portal, IRP portal rather, IRN. No, businesses will continue to generate e-invoices on their internal systems itself, whether it's an ERP or accounting software or a billing system or any other application. It is not. Just they have to get the invoice reference number and the QR code from the portal. Bas, utna hi karna hai. Will there be separate invoice formats required for traders, professionals, and contractors? Because each business has a different nature of transactions, different nature of supply, and different types of data which is required to be mentioned on the invoice. So the question is whether separate formats are required. No, it is the same e-invoice schema, because it contains the e-invoice schema format contains the basic mandatory fields which are required for all business transactions. And for the other transactions, it is an option for that particular businessman whether he wants to generate his entire invoice through the IRP or he wants to only generate the IRN. That option has been given. And when that option is exercised by that particular taxpayer, within that, what is a mandatory field and what is a non-mandatory field, that will depend on the nature of transactions that person is having. And once having selected a particular field, if within that field, if there are certain transactions which are mandatory, they will have to be mentioned. Other transactions will not have to be mentioned. mentioned. So again, it's an option which is available, and it's a very exhaustive schema which has been prepared, so members can take use of that. Of course, logo. The same question has come up whether the logo is required to be uploaded on the e-invoice template. It is not required. Your invoice, it is only a schema through which this data is going to get uploaded on the system through a JSON file. On your normal invoice, there's a FAQ also to this effect, because many companies have been asking this question: what happens to our logo? It's a brand image of the company, and that needs to be placed on the invoice. Yes, you can place your logo in your normal invoice, provided you have put the IRN number. So invoices, whether bulk uploading of invoices is possible, or it has to be single invoice at a time. Generally, invoices have to be uploaded on IRP one at a time. The IRP will be able to handle a large sequence of invoices for registration and validate them. Bulk upload will be required for large taxpayers to generate large number of invoices. So bulk upload and single upload both are available. One question is, how much time will it take to get registered? Of course, there has to be a good internet, a good network, which should be there. And apart from that, how fast the system will react? They are telling that it will be within sub 200 millisecond duration. The IRN is expected to be generated in sub 200 millisecond duration. So within a fraction of a second, the IRN will be generated. That is what is being mentioned on the portal. As I said earlier, there are 4 types of formats through which the JSON file can be uploaded onto the portal. These are available with the API also, of what type of data is to be uploaded on the invoice. That will be taken up by the Zoho team. I'm not going into the details for that. Of course, there are other points like how to register on e-invoice portal, etc. I've given you the URL. This is how it looks, how to get registered. This is just for your reference. Of course, all these normal fields are there. Then you log into the system. This is the dashboard where you see what invoices have been generated yesterday during the month and which invoices have been cancelled. There's one more important slide on cancelled. I will like to take you all through that slide also, because that is also very important, because there is no editing possible under this e-invoicing era. So how to make any changes which are required to be made. So that is also one more aspect which we need to check. This 1 hour session seems to be insufficient for taking up all the parameters relating to e-invoice. Our purpose was to give you a understanding and the issues, the eligibility, the criteria where this is going to be applicable. So this is just just a highlighter part of it, that these are the various points which require to be taken care of. Of course, there's a taxpayer search, as I told, that to whom it is applicable. You can find out through that as a pin code search, product search. This is a QR code verify application. There, of course, you need to first log into that and then scan that QR and upload to verify whether it is a genuine QR code or not. I think that is going to be again a challenge for the businesses, how to verify the e-invoice. As I told you, as of now, the verified signed invoice under search option can be selected, and the signed JSON file can be uploaded and verified. Similarly, QR code verify app may be downloaded and used to verify the QR code printed on the invoice. This is the only method which is available as of now for verification of the invoice. This is the screenshot of that. I'm just glancing through all this because these are all very much on the portal itself. What will be the impact of the GST returns? I think this we have already discussed, that the various tables of GSTR 1 of supplier will get auto-populated. And the IRP will push the e-invoice data into the GSTR 2A of the recipient also. There is one more which I have not mentioned, is regarding the e-way bill. So the part of the data also gets pushed into the e-way bill portal, and if you want to generate the e-way bill simultaneously, you'll be able to generate the e-way bill also, provided all those fields which are required for generating an e-way bill are mentioned in the are uploaded in that JSON file. So you have to decide whether you want that through one single invoice you want to generate your entire main invoice along with the e-way bill, then that is possible through this system. But if you feel that no, I will generate my normal invoice, I will push the data into the system, get the IRN, put the QR code on my normal invoice, and then generate my e-way bill, that also is possible. But I think down the line, we need to really gear up our systems into an automated process. I think Zoho is wonderful in doing that process. So that process needs to be embedded into our entire ecosystem of generating the invoices and accounting, etc. And I think that will really give more benefits of this e-era, which the government is so vehemently trying to usher into. This is the one point which I wanted to take up. Only one or two more slides after this. Whether e-invoices generated through GST system can be partially or fully cancelled. E-invoice cannot be partially cancelled. It has to be fully cancelled. You cannot say कि मेरा एक गलती हो गया, एक digit यहाँ का यहाँ हो गया सर, एक छोटा सा गलती है, we need to amend it. No, you cannot amend it. Only thing, it has to be fully cancelled. But again, there are conditions. You just cannot go and cancel any e-invoice. The e-invoice mechanism enables the invoices to be cancelled. They will have to be reported to IRN within 24 hours. So that is the only time limit. Within 24 hours, if you find out that you have generated a wrong IRN number, you need to go and cancel it. Of course, that still has further conditions. Any cancellation after 24 hours could not be possible on IRN. However, one can manually cancel the same on GST portal before filing the returns. I'm coming to those conditions. I think it is given in the, it is coming in the next slide. If the connected e-way bill is active or verified by officer during transit, cancellation of IRN will not be permitted. So, first of all, if you want to cancel IRN, it has to be cancelled within 24 hours. But say the corresponding e-way bill has also got generated, the goods are in transit, they are, and the e-way bill is active, or it has got verified by the officer, then in that case, the IRN cannot be cancelled. Otherwise, it can be cancelled within 24 hours. The next question is, what happens if 24 hours have elapsed and then we have come to know that there is an error in this invoice? Well, you don't have much choice. At the time of, so this invoice, this erroneous invoice with the IRN number, of course, will be generated. That will contain the erroneous data. This data you will be able to rectify in your GSTR1 only. That GSTR1 will have a reference of this IRN number, and there you will get the option of editing that data. Now, this is going to be actually a very cumbersome process, because what will happen, say you have prepared an invoice, there is an error in the invoice while uploading on the portal. You have downloaded the IRN, then you have issued a correct invoice, but the IRN details are incorrect. The IRN details would first go and fall into GSTR1 of the seller and GSTR2A of the buyer. Then, at the time of filing, the GSTR1 of the seller will be able to edit that information, and then the auto-generated 2A is going to again get auto-populated for the recipient. At that point of time, this corrected data will come. Already there are lots of issues in managing and compiling and matching of this two-way data with our purchase details. So one more matching, your Excel sheet gets larger, you get more pivots to deal with, and more work. I don't know whether it is actually required. Of course, it is going to be a big task in such thing. The reconciliations is going to be a challenge. So nothing to be happy about it. But yes, we need to be more accurate in this digital era. Otherwise, inaccuracy will lead to more complications. And in case of cancellation, suppose that cancellation is happening on time, GSTR1 also will be uploaded with such cancelled status. And as I told, amendments are allowed on the GST portal. Well, friends, I think this is what I wanted to mention about e-invoicing. There are still various parameters which need to be taken care of while issuing these invoices. The important would be, of course, going onto the portal, punching in that data, how that data is to be mentioned, what happens to the discount column, what happens to the other freight charges, how to mention them, whether that will get added or not. I think there are still various issues, and I think some of them would be taken care of while the presentation from the Zoho team. I think we should first now proceed with the presentation from the Zoho team. I'll request Robin to take charge of this, and then if there are further questions, if any, we will take up those questions. And thank you very much, all of you, for a patient hearing. And I'm sorry that we extended the scheduled time. It was till 5 o'clock, but I think we could not complete, and there are still various many aspects which I feel are still necessary for all of us to understand and inherent and get used to all this e-invoicing systems and the e-invoicing era. But anyway, thanks to the Zoho team for giving me an opportunity to share my views on this latest topic of e-invoicing, and thanks for a patient hearing. Thank you very much. Over to you,
Thank
Robin.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for the session. I hope everybody has benefited a lot, and we'll get back to you again, sir, with the questions.
Yes.
Now we'll move on to Gayatri, our product expert, who will give us the demo in Zoho Books. Gayatri, I'm passing on the session control to you now.
Hello, am I audible? Good evening, everyone. I'm Gayatri, and I'm going to show you a live demo of how e-invoicing works in Zoho Books. As we all know, an e-invoice or an electronic invoice is a digital document exchange between a supplier and a buyer to ensure that a common format is followed across all businesses so that invoices can be uploaded to the GST portal in a common format. So e-invoicing in Zoho, these are the various platforms where we provide these various features. I'll just brief you shortly on each. So generation of e-invoice is available in Zoho Invoice, Subscription, Zoho Inventory, and Zoho Books. Generation of e-bill is available in Zoho Inventory and Zoho Books. Generation of credit notes is available in Zoho Invoice, Subscription, Inventory, and Books. Generation of debit notes is available in Zoho Invoice and Zoho Books. Vendor management, such as your purchases, can be managed under Zoho Inventory and Books. GST filing, GSTR 1 is available in Zoho Invoice. GSTR 1, 2, 3B, and 9 is available in Zoho Books. You can also use Zoho Books to push your e-invoices alone using API if you're using other ERP system. With that note, let's see how e-invoicing works in Zoho Books. Before you start e-invoicing in Zoho Books, you'll have to register with the invoice registration portal to send the invoice details. To do this, you have to register Zoho Corporation as your GST Suvidha provider in the IRP website and set up a username and password for the portal. In Zoho Books, the option to enable e-invoicing can be found under Settings, Preferences, e-invoicing, and you'll have a connect now option here. Now it's been configured, but before that you'll have a connect now option here. So when you click on the connect now button, you'll be prompted to enter the username and password that you used while registering Zoho Corporation as your GST Suvidha provider in the IRP portal. Once you enter the username and password, you can save and validate. Now you'll be connected with the portal and you will be able to push invoices, credit notes, and debit notes to the IRP portal. So connecting to the ERP, you have to note that if you create e-payables directly from Zoho Books, you will have to connect your organization with the e-payable portal. The same credentials can be used to log into the IRP as well. Zoho Books will automatically use your e-payable portal credentials to connect you with the IRP. Now let us see how to configure user permissions. Now that you've connected Zoho Books with the e-invoicing portal, you can configure which of your organization users should have this e-invoicing permissions. To do that, you can click on Settings, Users and Roles. You can edit an existing role or click a new one. Once you click on New Role, you can enter the role name. Scroll down to the e-invoicing section. Select Push and Cancel Transaction under the e-invoicing tab and save it. Now let us see how to create invoices. The government has mandated a set of fields that are required for an e-invoice. All these mandatory fields will be available in Zoho Books. We would get all the mandated information from you at multiple levels right from creating the master data. Some of the data are available when creating new invoices. Other mandatory fields will be available for that invoice if you've already entered them in Zoho Books. For example, if you've entered them while creating the items or while creating the customers. Now to create a new invoice, you'll have to go to Sales, click on Invoices, click on New Invoice, select the customer name, fill the other mandatory details, scroll down, select the item, and save it as draft. So once you've saved it as draft, you'll be able to see that the mandatory fields such as the organization details, that is the seller's details, that is the legal name, GSTIN address, and the buyer's GST treatment, billing address, invoice number, and the transaction details such as the date, invoice date, etc., and the item details such as the item type, HSN, selling price, etc., are already there on the invoice. Now that the invoice is created, the next step is to push the invoices to the IRP portal. As soon as the invoice is created, it will be in the draft status. All your invoice in the draft and approved status alone can be pushed to the IRP website. If you've enabled multi-level approval, then the invoice can be pushed only after it's been approved by the final approval. You have to push an invoice to the IRP before sending it to a customer. So to push an invoice, click on the Push to IRP option and select Push only invoice details. If you have already generated an e-waybill, you can select the second option. So you'd be able to see that the invoice status has been changed to push. You can also choose to push multiple invoices at the time. So you can click on the filter here, choose yet to be pushed for e-invoicing, select the invoices in bulk, and then you'll be able to see the option which says push to IRP in bulk. When an invoice has been pushed successfully, a QR code and the IRN number will be displayed. It will be updated in the invoice, so you can see the QR code here and the IRN number automatically displayed once you clicked on the push to IRP. To enable this, you can go to Settings, Templates, edit the invoice template that you're currently using, scroll down to the footer section, and you'll be able to see the e-invoicing details. So you can enable and disable according to your business preference and save it. So let us see about the cancellation of e-invoice. If you cancel an e-invoice in Zoho Books within the first 24 hours of generating an IRN for it, then it will be cancelled in the IRP also automatically. To do that, click on Cancel e-invoice. Select the reason, enter some remarks, and click on Cancel e-invoice. So the invoice is no longer valid, e-invoice is no longer valid. However, after 24 hours of pushing an invoice to the IRP successfully, IRN generated will no longer be available in the IRP portal. So cancelling in Zoho Books will not cancel it in the IRP automatically. So you'll have to log into the GST system, enter the IRN of the invoice you want to make changes, after which you'll have to cancel the invoice. If you've set up recurring invoices, the recurring invoices generated from the profile will be pushed to IRP based on the configured recurring invoice preferences. So let us see what are the recurring invoice preferences available in Zoho Books. So I'm going to settings, preferences, scrolling down to recurring invoices. So these are the various options we have, preferences. So you can create invoices as draft. So if you choose this option, the invoice will be created in draft status and you will have to push them to the IRP manually by clicking the push to IRP button, which we saw earlier. And if you create and send, if you create, push and send invoices will be pushed to IRP and then sent to your customers for payment. If you select create, charge, push and send invoices, the generated invoices will be pushed to IRP automatically. If it's pushed successfully, then the customer will be charged and the invoice will be sent to them. If it fails, the customer will be charged and the payment thank you notification will be sent to them. The system will retry pushing the invoice to the IRP. Once it's successful, the invoice will be sent to the customer with the QR code. So we also have some estimate preferences. So the estimate preferences will be create invoice as draft. So invoice will be saved as draft and the normal procedure what we saw earlier can be continued. The second option is yes, create, push and send. So the invoice will be pushed to IRP and after which it will be sent to your customer. So these are the preferences available for recurring invoice and estimates. And with that, we're through with the demo. I'll pass the control to Robin. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gayatri, for the demo, and I hope this is now completely clear to all of us. Now I'll again pass on the control to Pranav sir so that he can take up the questions part.
Well, coming to the questions, there are a few questions which have been mentioned earlier. The first is, our turnover is 5 lakhs in the previous year. Can we start e-invoicing from now? No, you cannot start e-invoicing from now because e-invoicing is enabled only for those persons who have crossed the threshold limit, which is 500 crores as of now. The voluntary option is not yet enabled. So until and unless the voluntary making of e-invoice option is enabled, you cannot upload the e-invoice. Of course, if you want to cater to and make yourself e-invoice ready, you can keep your systems ready based on the various parameters, the schema formats which have been given on the portal. But you cannot, as of now, issue e-invoice. Then the next question is e-invoice mandatory for B2C transactions? No, e-invoice is not mandatory for B2C transactions. As I told earlier, it is applicable only for B2B transactions. In case of B2C transactions, the dynamic QR code will be applicable. That too, as of now, only for companies with who are having turnover more than 500 crores, the aggregate turnover, what we discussed earlier, the aggregate turnover more than 500 crores, and that too with effect from 1st December 2020. The dynamic QR code will be applicable to such companies. So as of now, for B2C transactions, e-invoice is not required. Then the next question is IRN and QR code required to be printed on the credit note and debit note? According to my view, it is not as of now mandatory to print the QR code or the IRN on the credit note or debit note, but it is advisable to print at least the IRN on the debit note or credit note so that it will give a proper reference of this. And if you are able to print that QR code through your system generated QR code, nothing like it, you can print it. But I was just going to the notification number 72, which came in the last week of September, only 20th or 29th of September. And therein they have made an amendment in Rule 46 of the GST rules, wherein only in case of tax invoice, for Rule 46.1, sub rule R has been added, wherein it has been made mandatory in a tax invoice to mention a QR code with an embedded IRN number. But if we go to the corresponding Rule 53 which relate to the debit note and credit note, no such amendment has been made therein. So possibly it is not mandatory to mention the QR code on the debit note or credit note, but in case if you mention it when it is generated on the portal, and for even for internal references and for corresponding references with the customers, that will be useful. So you can mention that. I think there is no debar on mentioning it, but it is not does not appear mandatory. Then, in case of the next question is in case of any issue of e-invoice portal due to which IRN cannot be get generated, then can we clear goods with invoice without IRN? For sending the goods, you need to generate an e-way bill. And I suppose that, of course, your company would be eligible to issue would be liable to issue the e-invoice itself, which is mandatory, and there are issues on the portal. For this current month, at least you'll be able to issue the normal invoice and later on generate the IRN. But as far as the invoice, if you're just issuing the invoice and you are generating an e-way bill without the IRN number, then maybe your normal invoice with the e-way bill will be required. But maybe subsequently you can generate the IRN, and by the time there's any checking on the route in transit, maybe this IRN number can be generated till that point of time, in case if it is necessary or urgent to dispatch the goods. Then next question is it mandatory to show rate and quantity fields on the e-invoice? It is not mandatory to show rate and quantity fields on the e-invoice, which is to be uploaded on the IRP, on the invoice registration portal. But in all other cases, the rate quantity, as far as the normal invoice is concerned, that will be required to be mentioned, and that will have to be mentioned. We have to really understand that the e-invoice per se, which is generated, is to only a reporting of the basic data of the regular invoice on the portal and generating the IRN number. Right. So your regular invoice would contain all those details. It is not necessary that it should be there on the e-invoice, but once the e-invoice is generated, and if you want to really use that invoice for all other purposes, then you need to mention your rate and quantity also while generating the e-invoice. That call you will have to take whether you want to issue a regular invoice with the IRN number, or you want to use the e-invoice which is downloaded from the portal containing those details. So that option you will have to exercise. It's an option available. Then next question is, for few transporters, e-way bill is generated on e-way bill portal but not on e-invoice portal, as transporters GST and status is not migrated. In such case, what transporter shall do so that e-invoice portal to generate e-way bill? I think that issue which pertains to the transporter would remain at its place, because the transporter will not be able to do anything much about it, because this getting the IRN number is the duty of the supplier who is going to supply the goods and getting the number. I don't think the transporter will be able to do anything about it, and the transporter will also not be able to do it on the e-invoice portal. He has the option of generating e-way bill on the e-way bill portal, but and there in such cases those transporters have a separate registration number. But I don't think the same facility is provided on the e-invoice portal. Although both the portals are similar, but we really need to check whether that will be available. Possibly that would not be the position. Only the e-way bill portal will allow the transporters login, and not on the e-invoice portal. Fine. I think these are the questions which have come from the participants. I hope I've been able to give the proper answers to all these questions. And in case if any more questions are there, my coordinates are available on the slide, I think, which will be shared by Zoho, and you can contact us at any point of time, or you can mail me at pranav@apms.in. Well, that's it. Yeah, Robin.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for the session. And I hope all the questions have been answered by you, and everybody is satisfied with the answers as well.
Yeah, I do hope so.
Yeah, yes, sir. I think we can now log off the session, sir, and close the session.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. And thanks
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thanks to Robin as well as the Zoho team. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye.